I hope you're ready, lads, to see your future. Here it is, the Immortal Empires map, the full thing in all of its glory. Now I know what you're thinking, Zerk, I can't see Shizer, zoom it in, man. Well, alright, we're going to make our way from left to right, starting over here in the top left corner. This is, of course, Dark Elf territory as always, but it's been extended across the northern part of the map, right up the top. We've got a few extra provinces up there that weren't there in the Warhammer 2 Mortal Empires map, so some new stuff up there. Moving down from there, we see the Norske area and the Empire area. Those pretty much the same as always. Sylvania, the same there as well. And we can notice here that Kislev has kind of got smaller again from the Chaos Realms map. It's pretty much the size it was before, at least it looks pretty much the size as it was in Mortal Empires in Warhammer 2. We've also got the World's Edge Mountains over here as well, so likely going to be full of dwarfs and greenskins. Moving down south a bit, going back to the left side, we've got Lustria over there, looking pretty much the same as always. Although with some of these Warhammer 2 areas, they are looking a bit more like the Vortex campaign map, which is a little bit more extended than what we get in Mortal Empires typically, so there are going to be some new regions all over the place, even in those areas that we already know really well. We can see Ulthuan here as well, pretty much looking the same. The Bretonia area, we start to get into the lower Empire areas on the far right, and then down into the Badlands with all the greenskins and the dwarfs. That's still looking pretty much as it was before. Now moving our way down to the very bottom of the map, this is where we get to the Tomb Kings area, just below the Greenskins Badlands. Then we've got all the jungle areas below that, which is similar to the Vortex campaign map in Warhammer 2, and the same on the other side with the rest of Lustria down here, the big continent. This is roughly the same as Vortex Warhammer 2, so there's going to be much more landmass, more settlements than there is in Mortal Empires. And then right down south, you may have noticed, we have something that we've never had before, the Southern Chaos Wastes. This is completely new, so we got a whole bunch of areas down there to explore. This area wasn't in Warhammer 1, 2, or even 3, so completely new area. Who knows what factions are going to start down there? Maybe some lore nerds might have an idea who comes from the Southern Wastes. So that's pretty much everything that we've known already. It's a combination of Vortex Warhammer 2 and Mortal Empires Warhammer 2. There's more landmass than ever before, though, from these areas that we've already had from Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2. Now let's move it over to the east a little bit for some new areas that aren't actually really areas at all. We see these two big land masses on the right, which is quite obviously Koresh and Ind. However, they are completely blank, inaccessible, and I wouldn't get your hopes up that those two factions are ever going to make it into the game, but the land mass is just there. Maybe it'll become accessible one day, even without those two factions, or maybe it just never will. Who knows? We do see this group of islands, though, which is named the Eastern Colonies, which makes you think that maybe we can go there. However, there's no roads drawn on the big island, so it makes you think maybe it's not accessible, but it seems pointless to name it if it's not accessible, so who knows whether we'll actually be able to go there. To the north in the center, we see the Dragon Isles, where Malice typically starts. At least he'll be able to get out and get his black arc around the world now, instead of being stuck into one little corner like he normally is. But yeah, overall, not a lot in this bottom right corner. For the most part, it just leaves us with a bunch of question marks as to whether the appropriate factions will ever fill their land. Now then, moving up into the final part of the map we haven't seen, the top right corner with all the new areas basically from Warhammer 3. The most notable thing here is the Cathay lands and how they've been rotated along with everything else. You see the Great Bastion here, it's actually facing north now instead of facing kind of northwest, but it's actually supposed to technically be north, but it's been rotated around the Chaos Realms. So now it's actually facing north and makes sense. And as such, all the Cathay areas have been rotated as well. So Cathay is going to look very different now that it's not kind of sideways. And I think overall it does maybe look a little bit bigger as well. So lots of Cathay territory there. And again, like in Chaos Realms, they're on the edge of the map, so they got a nice kind of corner position where they only have to defend from the west and from the north. So a nice spot for Cathay. Next to that, we see the Mountains of Morn, where of course the ogres are going to reside. And then to the left of that, we've got the Darklands, which is typically home to, you guessed it, the good old Chaos Dwarfs, who of course aren't in the game yet or even confirmed to be in the game yet. But they're probably going to be in the game, let's be honest, right? I think a telltale sign of whether the Chaos Dwarfs are going to come into the game and be there is going to depend on who is in that region already. I'll wager that there's not a lot of legendary lords in that area or any major factions because they'll have to move them when Chaos Dwarfs arrive, so they're probably just going to be random nobody factions that will be easily replaceable later. Just a theory though. To the north of the Darklands as well, we see some of the other newer Warhammer 3 areas like Bloodfire Falls, the Blood Marshes, the Skull Road, This is of course where Khorne starts and Skarbrand. There's some Nurgly kind of areas over here in Cathay. But who knows where anybody is going to start other than the fairly obvious things like Kislev are going to start in Kislev, for example. So this has been the Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires map. Our next question is going to be, where do all the legendary lords start now? It said in the previous blog before that 29 legendary lords from Warhammer 2 Immortal Empires have been moved. And that's quite a lot of lords, which means a whole bunch of new content, 29 fresh campaigns essentially, that we haven't quite experienced, having a lord that we've already know and we know how the mechanics work, and that can really just jazz something up that's maybe become a little bit stale. So it's going to be exciting to see where all the lords have gone. CA have said that's going to be the next blog telling us about start positions, so I guess we probably won't have too long to wait. But what do you reckon? I think it's looking good. For me, I don't think there's any more you could ask for with this. We've got a couple of new areas. We've got some extended areas than what they were in Immortal Empires. So Immortal Empires is shaping up real nice. Good to see the Cathay areas finally being as they should and actually facing north and things like that. It's going to feel like a much nicer experience overall, I'm sure, with a lot more freedom to do whatever the hell we want. In this blog as well that this map came in, there was also this map which shows us the sea lane positions. That new feature that allows us to traverse vast distances of the map in but a few turns. So we can assume that they're going to be color matched, so if you try to go into the purple sea lane, you're going to end up at the other purple sea lane. If you go in the red one, you're going to go to the red one, etc. So it's mostly for going from one side of the world map edge to the other, but it kind of leaves out the central areas, which I think is kind of a bummer. Like the Empire, they don't have any easy access sea lanes. The closest one to them is the purple one, which is still a fair old trek away and only gets them down near Lustria, so it's kind of not that great for them, and a little bit disappointing in that respect. Honestly, I expected it to be positioned so that kind of every faction could reasonably get to one of these sea lanes to use them, but as I say, the central parts of the map aren't really going to have much use of them. And for Cathay, they're going to have 3 sea lanes that end up next to them. So it feels like Cathay is maybe actually going to get invaded a lot through these sea lanes. So maybe Cathay isn't as safe as it seems. And the same for Lustria on the left there. It's got 2 sea lanes that end up at it, meaning that maybe that area is just going to get constantly attacked. I don't know if the AI is going to be using these sea lanes as well, or whether it's just for players. Who knows? But either way, it's nice that this has made it into the game. It's a nice feature. It should be a good addition. If it works well, hopefully maybe they'll expand it to include some of those central areas. Maybe one like here in the Gulf of Kislev that comes down to the Tilian Sea perhaps, or maybe over to the Sea of Dread somewhere, so that all these factions can really get anywhere. Otherwise, the Empire will never be able to fight any Tomb Kings or be able to get over to Cathay. What if Karl Franz wants to go and take the Southern Chaos Wastes? How the hell is he going to get there? It's going to take him forever. So yeah, it'll be nice to see where this system goes. I think it should be good though. But this is it. This is our final iteration of Warhammer 3. This is what it looks like. Get used to it. You're going to be seeing a lot of it. Maybe some will get added as we go. Maybe those 2 blank kingdoms will get filled out one day. We shall see. Let me know what you think. Does this map please you or leave you wanting more? I don't really know what more you could want, but let me know. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. See you in the future.